The fluorescent lights of University Hospital glowed with a sterile calm that only medical facilities seemed capable of maintaining, an order so precise it could hide the chaos of human lives unraveling inside. Steffi Forrester had always found comfort in that order. Routine meant control, and control had become her religion. It was just another health checkup for Kelly, something every responsible mother did, a quiet affirmation that everything was fine. Liam had come along, smiling in that easy, practiced way that made the nurses whisper about what a perfect family they seemed. Finn was there too, steady, professional, his scrubs still creased from the morning shift, his presence a reminder of how neatly her world fit together when everyone stayed in their assigned roles. None of them knew that by the end of the afternoon, those roles would be gone forever. The mistake began innocently enough. A lab technician, overworked and distracted, mislabeled a DNA control sample. It was a small error, something that should have gone unnoticed, except that the results from Kelly's test triggered an automatic cross-reference in the hospital system, one that compared biological markers to immediate family profiles stored in the database. When the computer flagged a paternal mismatch, no one understood what it meant at first. Then the numbers appeared on the screen, a cascade of genetic data that told a truth more devastating than any spoken word. Kelly Spencer was not Liam Spencer's biological daughter. The confirmation came quietly, in the soft buzz of the printer and the frozen silence of the doctor reading the report. Finn was the match. The probability, 99.97%. Steffi's body went cold before her mind could catch up. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the examination table as if the metal could anchor her to reality. The air thinned, the room closing in around her. She could hear Liam laughing faintly down the hall, playing with Kelly, his voice full of that paternal warmth that had always made her believe they would be all right in the end, no matter how tangled their past had been. She wanted to run out and stop time before it reached him. Before this truth did. The doctor's voice sounded distant, almost mechanical. MS. Forrester, I'm afraid there's been a finding. I double-checked it twice. The sample is correct. This is no error. Steffi's lips moved, but no words came. She shook her head slowly, violently whispering, No, that's impossible. That can't be right. But deep down she knew. A single memory stabbed its way through the fog, one night years ago, long before the dust of her relationship with Liam had truly settled. A night when grief had driven her to Finn's apartment after too much wine and too little control. She had told herself it was meaningless, a lapse, a moment swallowed by shame and alcohol. She had buried it beneath layers of excuses and denial, convincing herself it had never happened. But biology had no loyalty to lies. When Liam returned, holding Kelly's hand and smiling, the world fractured. The look on Steffi's face stopped him cold. "What's wrong?" he asked, half laughing, half afraid. She couldn't answer. The doctor handed him the report, unaware he was delivering a grenade. Liam scanned the page, his brow furrowing in confusion at the technical terms until the meaning landed with brutal simplicity. His breath caught. His hands trembled. He looked up at Steffi, searching her eyes for some denial, some misunderstanding that could undo the words he'd just read. But all he saw was guilt. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was Kelly's innocent laughter, echoing down the hall, a sound so pure it shattered what little composure remained. Liam's shoulders sagged. "Tell me this isn't real," he whispered. Steffi stepped toward him, tears breaking through. "Liam, please, He stepped back, shaking his head as if her voice physically hurt him. "How long have you known?" "I didn't until now. I swear I didn't know." But the words sounded hollow, even to her own ears. The truth wasn't about knowledge, it was about choices. About the silence she had chosen years ago when her conscience whispered that she should tell him about that night. She had silenced it, convincing herself that the past didn't matter because love would fix everything. Liam turned toward Finn then, and the look in his eyes was beyond fury. It was devastation edged with humiliation. "You," he said quietly, almost reverently, as if tasting the word. You knew, didn't you? Finn's face went pale.
No.
I swear, Liam, I didn't. I never even. Don't. Liam's voice broke, his control gone. Don't you dare stand there and pretend you're the victim here. He tore the report in half, then in quarters, the paper trembling in his hands. Do you have any idea what this means? I raised her. I held her when she had nightmares. His voice cracked. I thought she was mine. Steffi moved closer, reaching for him, but he recoiled as if her touch burned. Don't. Just don't. The hospital lights seemed too bright, too clean for something so ruinous. The image of Kelly laughing in the hallway became unbearable. Liam pressed his palms to his face, tears cutting through his anger. What am I supposed to tell her? He whispered. That her whole life was a lie? Steffi broke down completely, sinking into a chair, her sobs silent but violent. Finn stood frozen, his medical training useless against this kind of damage. He wanted to comfort her, but guilt held him in place. Somewhere inside, he was just as broken, because the blood that bound him to Kelly was the same truth that would destroy everything he loved. The aftermath was merciless. Word spread quickly through the family, as it always did. Brooke was the first to arrive at the hospital, her eyes wide with disbelief. Ridge followed soon after, his face a mask of fury and confusion. How could you let this happen? He demanded, though even he didn't know who he was addressing, Steffi for her silence or Finn for his existence. Liam left without another word. That night, he drove aimlessly through Los Angeles until the city lights blurred into nothing. The truth sat in his chest like glass, every breath cutting deeper. He thought about Kelly's first day of school, the tooth she'd lost last year, the way she called him Daddy, with such unguarded joy. He had always thought love was enough to make a family real. But now even love felt counterfeit. Back at the Cliff House, Steffi sat in the dark, watching the ocean crash against the rocks below. The house that had once been her sanctuary now felt haunted. Finn entered quietly, setting his keys on the counter. She didn't turn around. It's all gone, she said softly. Everything we built. He wanted to tell her it wasn't, that they could rebuild, that Kelly's laughter would still fill the halls. But even he didn't believe it. I didn't know, he whispered. She nodded. I know. But it doesn't matter. We'll never be the same. Days turned to weeks, and the fractures deepened. Liam refused to answer her calls. When he finally agreed to see her, it was only to talk about custody, his voice calm, detached, the way people speak when grief has burned them hollow. He didn't scream, didn't accuse. He simply said, I can't forgive you for this.
Not yet.
Maybe not ever. Kelly, too young to understand, asked questions that tore at them both. Why isn't Daddy staying for dinner anymore? Did I do something wrong? Steffi smiled through tears and told her no, that none of this was her fault, but each lie was another thread snapping inside her. Finn tried to be strong. He devoted himself to Kelly, trying to fill the gap Liam left, but every laugh, every bedtime story came with guilt. He loved the child that shared his blood, yet every time he looked at her, he saw the wreckage of that single night, the weakness that had cost so many hearts their peace. Meanwhile, Liam spiraled. His identity had always been entwined with being a father, the good man in a world of complicated ones. Now he questioned everything. He saw betrayal everywhere, his reflection, his home, even his daughter's smile. He confided in Wyatt once, late at night over whiskey, whispering, I don't even know who I am without her. Without that lie. The Spencer empire suffered too. Bill tried to repair the family image, insisting to the press that these are private matters, but the gossip industry feasted on the scandal. The perfect Logan Spencer-Forrester triangle, undone once again by DNA and desire. Eventually, Steffi met Liam at the park where Kelly played. It was quiet, the late afternoon sun bleeding gold across the grass. Kelly ran to her father, laughing, her small arms wrapping around his neck. For a moment, the world seemed to forget itself. Liam held her tightly, breathing her in, memorizing the warmth of a bond that felt both real and borrowed. When Steffi approached, he didn't look at her. She still thinks I'm her father, he said quietly. You are, Steffi whispered. You always will be. He finally turned to face her, eyes red but steady. No, Steffi. I was. There's a difference. The words broke something final between them. Months later, Finn found Steffi sitting on the porch, Kelly asleep upstairs. It's strange, she said softly, watching the moonlight scatter across the waves. The truth was supposed to set us free. Instead, it just took everything. Finn sat beside her, silent. There was no redemption big enough for this. Only endurance. In the distance, the ocean roared, endless, unfeeling, washing over the wreckage of their carefully constructed lives. And for the first time, Steffi understood that some mistakes don't destroy you all at once. They just keep echoing, wave after wave, until you forget who you were before the tide came in. Yet somewhere, between guilt and grief, there remained a small, fragile hope that Kelly, innocent and unbroken, might one day grow up knowing that the truth, no matter how cruel, was born not out of malice, but out of love that had lost its way. Weeks passed, but time did not heal. It merely dulled the edges of the wound. The Forrester Cliff house stood silent, no longer the echo of laughter and warmth, but of unspoken grief. The ocean outside remained relentless, as if mocking the fragility of human vows. Inside, Steffi moved like a ghost, her every motion careful, quiet, deliberate. She was afraid of sound now, afraid that any noise might bring back the storm she was trying to silence inside herself. Finn watched her with helpless love. He wanted to fix it, to reach her, but there was a wall between them built not of anger, but of shame. Kelly was his daughter, his own blood, and yet, every time he tucked her into bed, he saw Liam's shadow there too. It was the cruelest irony, fatherhood that brought guilt instead of joy. One evening, as the sky turned copper and the waves glowed with dying light, Steffi sat on the porch staring at the horizon. She hadn't spoken for hours. When Finn finally joined her, she whispered, I keep wondering which lie hurt more, the one I told myself or the one I told him. Her voice was small, brittle. I thought I was protecting everyone. But maybe I was just protecting my fear. Finn didn't answer. He simply reached for her hand, and though she didn't pull away, she didn't hold on either. That silence was their new language, one full of what they couldn't say. Across town, Liam lived alone in an apartment that felt more like a waiting room than a home. The walls were white, bare, indifferent. The only sign of life was a single framed photo of Kelly smiling at the park. He couldn't bring himself to remove it. Every morning he stared at her face and felt the same hollow ache, the same unrelenting question. How do you love a child who is no longer yours by blood, yet still yours by heart? When Wyatt visited, he tried to lift him out of the fog. You've got to move forward, man, he said gently. She's still your daughter in every way that matters. But Liam just shook his head. Every time I look at her, I remember what I wasn't, what I can never be. Meanwhile, the press refused to let the story die. Rumors swirled around Forrester Creations, questions about professionalism, ethics, and the family's obsession with secrecy. Steffi returned to work sooner than she should have, desperate to drown herself in sketches, fabrics, and deadlines. The board treated her cautiously, whispering behind her back, speculating whether the scandal had weakened her. It had. Every model, every fitting, every meeting was another performance, and she was running out of energy to pretend. One afternoon, she found herself alone in her office, staring at an unfinished design. It was a dress meant for innocence, pure white silk, light and delicate. But no matter how she adjusted the folds, it looked broken to her. She took the sketchbook and tore the page out, the sound sharp and final. That was when Ridge walked in. He didn't speak at first. He just watched her, his expression soft with concern. You don't have to carry all this alone, he said finally. She laughed, a hollow, humorless sound. Don't I? I made the choice. I built the lie. I hurt them both. Ridge shook his head. You're still my daughter. You're still a mother. Those things don't change because of a test. But Steffi didn't believe him. The DNA results had rewritten her world. Her identity now carried too many contradictions. She was both victim and culprit, mother and stranger, faithful and faithless. Every title she held, Forrester, wife, mother, felt fragile now, like glass on the verge of shattering. At the hospital, Finn threw himself into his work, trying to atone for something he couldn't articulate. The other doctors noticed his distraction, the way he hesitated before delivering test results, as if terrified of truth itself. It was ironic, he thought. Medicine had always been about certainty, but his life had become one long uncertainty. Late one night, he was reviewing patient charts when he found himself staring at Kelly's file again. The numbers, the markers, the undeniable science, it was all there, permanent and merciless. He closed the folder and whispered into the empty room, "I wish I didn't know." But ignorance was a luxury none of them could reclaim. Then, one afternoon, Steffi received a call from the school. Kelly had been in tears during art class. When Steffi arrived, she found her daughter sitting alone, clutching a crumpled drawing. On it was a family of three, Steffi, Finn, and Kelly, but the paper had two suns drawn in the sky. "Which one is Daddy?" she asked innocently, looking up with eyes too wise for her age. The question gutted Steffi. She knelt down, voice trembling. "They both love you," she whispered. "That's all you need to know." But as she said it, she saw the confusion flicker in her daughter's eyes. Even children can sense when love hides a secret. That night, after Kelly was asleep, Steffi sat by her bed, tracing the outline of her daughter's hand on the blanket. She thought of the night she had tried to forget, the glass of wine, the grief that had driven her to Finn's door, the fragile humanity that had led to this chain of consequences. She wished she could rewrite it, but life didn't offer second drafts. Liam visited a week later, unannounced. The moment he saw Kelly run into his arms, something inside him softened. He knelt and kissed her hair, whispering her name like a prayer. Steffi watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her face. When their eyes met, there was no anger left, only exhaustion. "Thank you for letting me see her," Liam said quietly as he prepared to leave. "She needs you," Steffi replied. He hesitated. "Do you really think I can still be her father?" "Yes," she said simply. "Because you already are." And maybe, in that moment, forgiveness began, not complete, not clean, but something like it. As months passed, the scandal slowly faded from headlines. People found new stories to feed on. But for those 3 lives, nothing ever truly faded. Steffi and Finn rebuilt their relationship brick by brick, not out of romance but resilience. Liam found solace in small moments, school plays, weekend visits, the way Kelly still reached for his hand without hesitation. The truth had broken them, yes, but it had also revealed what was indestructible. Love, they discovered, wasn't just a promise kept, it was the ability to keep showing up even after every promise had been broken. One evening, as the sun set over the ocean, Steffi watched Kelly and Finn building sandcastles by the shore. Liam stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, smiling faintly. For the first time in months, she felt peace, not because everything was fixed, but because she had stopped fighting the tide. The ocean roared as always, endless and forgiving, washing away footprints that would return again tomorrow. And in that rhythm, Steffi finally understood. Life was not about holding on to what was lost, but learning how to live with what remained, and finding grace, somehow, in the ruins.